Recently, I came across an interesting statement on Facebook written by a practitioner of Qigong Kungfu. Here, I would like to have a closer look at this statement. It said, the external world has to be in balance with the internal world. If we put the focus too much on the external world, we tend to neglect our body. Focusing too much on the internal world, we risk to fall into loneliness. Both worlds exist, but it is difficult to keep the balance. If in the outside world something goes wrong, then this is because we are too much focused on the internal world and vice versa. The balance has to be 50-50. Now, before I comment on this, I should mention that Chinese martial arts, such as Kungfu, are not standing for themselves. At least, they definitely should not. They are, according to the old tradition of Chan Buddhism and embedded in it, the Shaolin order, just a part of a wide and complex system of spiritual training. This training is composed by the psycho-meditative elements of the Buddhist teachings, the more mystical teaching of Taoism going back to Lao Tzu, and the rather ethical philosophical elements of Confucianism founded by Kungfu Tzu. These are the three teachings both Kungfu and Qigong are based on. This is important to know if we want to deal with the question of the internal and external world.
A estrutura geral de Qigong e Kungfu é fundada. Saber disto é importante quando lidamos com a questão do mundo interno e externo.
So, my comment on the Facebook statement was, I understand what you mean, sir, but it is decisive to see and understand the deep truth that there is no such thing as the internal or the external world. This differentiation is purely worldly, and the Buddha advises us to go beyond. There are only the 5 aggregates and the 4 elements. In Buddhism, there are 4, not 5 elements. At the end of the day, all manifestations are void, sunyata. So, let's have a look at that.
Sunyata. Vamos dar uma olhada mais profunda nisto. Então, o que Buda ensinou a este
What
respeito?
did the Buddha teach?
Primeiro de tudo,
Well, firstly, he never spoke of an internal or external world. These notions do not exist in the talks he gave during his lifetime. What he was talking about was samsara, the world we live in, the material world which is physically experienceable and cognitively perceptible. Taoists call it the world of dust. And often it says, according to the Buddhist and Taoist teaching, it's all about overcoming this world, since only in this world there are aging and death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair, as the Buddha said. He invites us, in order to overcome all this, by walking the Eightfold Path, consisting of the 8 intertwined aspects of spiritual development, the completion or realization which is indispensable for the one earnestly searching the way out of suffering and its causes.
Desenvolvimento espiritual, cuja perfeição ou realização é indispensável de alguém.
For us, the first of the 8 aspects is especially important, samadhi, or the right parameters.
Em uma palavra, o estresse e o sofrimento. Para nós, o primeiro aspecto
This means to understand the way our mind-body formation works, how we experience the 10,000 things, as it says in Taoism, and what they really are, what is behind them. All this at first by using our intellectual, later a deeper understanding.
Realmente e na verdade, ou seja, o que está por trás disso. Vamos olhar uma criança pequena que ainda não
As an example,
capaz de falar
let us take
nenhuma
a little child still unable to speak or think any language. If his look falls on a tree, he won't think or say tree. For the child, there's only color and form. Hearing the mother's voice, the child won't think mother is talking. Instead, there is only sound. Smelling or tasting a semolina pudding, the child won't think, wow, semolina pudding. And getting an injection at the doctor's, the child won't think pain or, oh, this hurts. There is only a bodily sensation. Only later in the child's life, when certain experiences repeat themselves, and the child learns to give them names, and in addition to this, the child associates certain affective reactions with them, then this pure, direct and value-free perception turns into a cognitive intellectual perception.
Dos respectivos experiências e mais alguns, esta percepção pura, imediata e sem valor se torna uma percepção cognitiva intelectual. Cientificamente expressa uma
Scientifically spoken, an apperception turns into a perception. This interpreting and naming perception, which also values objects and occurrences according to the affective reaction, is the foundation for the state in which we no longer see things as they really are, but through a filter learned by conditioning.
Originalidade, mas através de filtro aprendido. O que emerge aqui?
What comes to be here is what we call concepts. We do not see color and form, but the concept tree, consisting of the totality of our physical and emotional association. We don't hear a sound, do not taste and smell a taste or smell, do not experience bodily sensations, but always only the concept of the respective sense experience consisting of our intellectual and emotional associations.
Experiência sensorial que inclui tudo o que associamos intelectualmente e emocionalmente a ela. E nós não experimentamos a nós mesmos, mas o conceito de eu.
We do not experience ourselves, but the concept I, also consisting of our intellectual and emotional associations. This includes that we estimate ourselves. Self-concept and self-esteem are closely connected. The latter cannot exist without the first. What we just described, the perception of the inner and outer world, is what samsara, the world of dust, means. An external and internal world, separated from each other, do only exist in the world of concepts, the conventional everyday world, the dualistic world.
Mundo de conceitos, no mundo convencional do cotidiano, o mundo da separação. E é precisamente essa separação.
And it's all about transcending the separation in order to reduce and finally overcome dukkha, stress and suffering. The latter when we reach nibbana or nirvana, or the mystical merging with God, or the flowing into Allah, or the becoming one with the Tao. All this has the same meaning in the words of the different religious traditions. How is this possible? To explain this would go beyond all frames of this video. But when we remember the little child mentioned above, and when we consider this in the light of a certain talk of the Buddha one gave, we can get a clue of all this. The Buddha says, when for you there will be only the seen in reference to the seen, so color and form, only the heard in reference to the heard, which is sound, only the sensed in reference to the sensed, bodily sensation such as hot and cold, soft and hard, only the consciously perceived in reference to the consciously perceived. Then there is no more relation between you and that, because there is no more separation between object and perceiver. With the fading away of this separation, also the I or me fades away. Since, in the words of Taoism, yin and yang can only either coexist or neither of them can exist at all. When this is the case, he says, an I or me is neither here, nor yonder, nor between the two. This, just this, is the end of stress and suffering.
Este
This is the meaning of Gate Gate Paragate Parasangate, the final statement of the famous Heart Sutra. Gone, gone, gone to the other side, totally gone beyond. Herein lies the letting go of all concepts without denying them. In this world, in the conventional world, we use conventional concepts. When we are all by ourselves, in meditation for example, we come back to what is beyond concepts, namely the void, sunyata, of the nameless. Thus, to resume the said, the difficulty is not to find a balance between the internal and the external world. For the Buddhist, it's about balancing the conventional world, which is both internal and external, and the nameless void. This, however, is the foundation for non-differentiating wisdom, the breaking away of all boundaries, and thus it is the foundation for all-comprising love, called Mettā.
De todos os limites e, portanto, do amor abrangente.